Hey everybody, good evening. Sorry running behind today. I had a meeting. I know school is back in full thrust. So sorry that we're running late tonight, but I hope that y'all can stay with us because if school is running full thrust, that means guess what? Lives are doing what they do and being how they be. So we gotta make life go and make it do what it do. So good evening. I'm excited to talk about tonight. And I hope that that I always call her Dr. Naomi. She says she does not have her doctorate. But I hope that the great Reverend blessed you last time. What a wonderful, wonderful time we had. It was beautiful. So, good evening again. There was a lot that happened today. On Wednesdays, community has community prayer at 7-ish in the morning. That's what I say. And so, it was just inclined to pray for our youth and our children, just because of everything that's been going on. But more so, I just really believe that God led that prayer. And then today, in Georgia, in Clayton County, there was a brutal beatdown of a kid at a local high school. And so here we are moving back into what we want to call normality. And COVID is not over. Not to scare anybody, but COVID is moving into, like when common cold came out, when, other diseases came out, and we have the technology, we have the skill and the know-how and the brilliance to create things, vaccines and ways to heal. So we're moving back into, again, moving forward in society, even with that and monkeypox and all of that, So, but in that, we still have to learn how to socialize again. We still have to learn how to come back into social space again. And that is by far something that's scary, especially for this generation of children, because they are tech natives. They are not just savvy, they are native to technology. Like their very first thing, their very first understanding, like literally you have 2-year-olds that know how to use a phone. They know what red and green means. They know to answer it. They know the faces on it. And so to socialize or to be in close proximity, maybe something is hard. And so just asking you guys, hey, Aunt, asking you guys just to keep our youth in prayer. Keep the faculty of our schools in prayer. Keep those that are in administration in prayer. And keep those that are employed by the school system in prayer. I said it differently because they all fall into different spaces, but they all are affected. And so keep them in prayer. And so, yeah, do that. The other thing that I wanted to highlight, because the text tonight, if y'all ready for it, Proverbs 4:7, but I'm going to read a little bit more of it. But 4:7 is what we're going to see. It's something that's a very familiar text if you're from Atlanta. You're not from Atlanta if you never heard this text. You're not from Atlanta. You hear what I said? So very famous pastor just got big in the news recently because he said you don't tithing is wrong. That's what he said. People got mad, like the preachers got mad. They was like, I know he ain't say tithing is wrong. Tithing is not biblical is the statement that he said. And so, but he used to say this all of the time. This is literally the motto of his church. But we're gonna talk about it tonight. So the other group to pray for is individuals who are trying to numb. So what I mean by that, those who are dealing with some level of addiction, those that are dealing with some level of addiction. So addiction didn't just look like drugs and alcohol, gambling, food, game time addiction. Like people get literally addicted to playing games. People who may have a sex addiction, things like that. Like praying in this time, because again, we are learning how to get back to society. That may be it might be full of anxiety as we go back into society. It may be depression it may be a lot of depression to go back into places where I felt comfortable. I'm just not getting used to being kind of, slowly moving back in. And then here's this full thrust, this full throttle back into society and what the expectations are. And so we go to something that can comfort us, take care of us, nurture us. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's where addictions they go to, because this is going to help me numb, it's going to help me feel better, it's going to help me do whatever. So these are the two populations that I'm asking you guys to pray for. And then the third thing that I would like for y'all to pray for tonight, because normally we don't ask for prayers on Lift Moments on the Men, but I'm feeling like this just needs to continue, is our upcoming election. In the state of Georgia, there's a mess. So, sometimes you be like, why are we praying for this? But pray for our government, that they move into fair space. And y'all will see how this ties into the text tonight. Pray for them, that it isn't so crazy in this election that there's illegal mess going on that isn't caught. Because I can't say there won't be. Because people are fighting. Pray for those that are running for Senate seats, and pray for those that are running for gubernatorial seats. Pray for those that are just moving into seats of position, so that we have the right level of government going. So a lot of people don't care about this particular election, because it's like the midterm election. Like, we care about the president, but really the people in your state, they run your state. Like, we're a democracy. So you want to vote for the people in your state. Like, if you want a new governor, then you need to vote for somebody who's capable of being the governor. If you want new senators and they running, you get that, because that is a really big thing that's happening in this midterm because of things that are going. So we have saw and we have seen what can happen when you have a government divided. We lost a lot of things, a lot of provisions, and it didn't just affect Black folks. So that's why I'm saying y'all can pray. I believe God I think I pray of heaven. That's my belief. So, and if it's spotted, and I don't know, I think it was a lot of clouds over my house. When I'm sitting right by the box, I made sure to come and sit by it, because I'm in my home office tonight. So let's just get to it. I hope y'all can honor those requests. And hope y'all can sit with that in your prayer time, and when you spend time with God, when you spend time with the God of your understanding. So tonight, y'all saw it. And this is how it's going to tie all the way in. Proverbs 4:7. And I'm going to go back up. I'm going to read it out of New Revised Standard. And then I'm going to read it from a version of the Bible that is close to a direct translation of the verse. So let us sit with it. I'm going to read. I said New Revised. I'm just going to read it from what y'all know. I tell people, sometimes you just got to go to King James. So Proverbs 4:7 says, wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom. And with all that getting, get understanding. So y'all know, if you from Atlanta, the Atlanta area, y'all know whose motto that is. And I still believe in a motto. Still believe that in all you're getting, get understanding. Well, why are we talking about this tonight? Because there are a lot of things going on that we're not getting the complete understanding of what it may be, and we're not following. In the last week, I've had the privilege of working with great minds, beautiful minds, like some of the best minds across the nation. And one thing that was said that I thought was really powerful is in the room, the statement was, I follow the word of God directly. It made me think about this particular text, because what do you mean? And so I did ask the question, because y'all done met me. Y'all know what I do. And I said, what do you mean you follow it directly? And it's like, I follow this particular type of Bible and what it says. And so we had a discussion. It was a healthy discussion in that room about knowing exactly what you're reading and exactly the context of what you're reading and how you are applying it to life. So I'm going to read it from a version of the Bible that is a closer direct translation of Hebrew Bible. Hebrew Bible means this was written in Hebrew. So everything in your Old Testament was written in Hebrew, and some words in Hebrew don't translate into English. So this is as close as we can get in this particular Bible. So I'm going to start at verse 1, and then I'm going to go down. Sons, heed the discipline of a father. Listen and learn discernment, for I give you good instruction. Do not forsake my teaching. Listen and learn discernment is one of the big things that are sitting there. Listen and learn discernment. When we are reading, when we take on the beliefs that we have, we also have to discern the room and discern where we are. Like, the lack of discernment will get us caught up. So the things I asked you to pray for, There's levels of discernment, especially in our governmental processes. What are we doing to discern what we need to do and who needs to be there? And this is what I thought, I hope Zay can pop in tonight. Because what does that look like when we actually understand the history of our government and what is going on? We listen and learn discernment, listening for the discernment. That requires us maybe to sit still. So being still and to know does not mean lack of work. It really is being able to sit and being able to breathe. The word that's used in that psalm that I just quoted, it literally asks us to be still and know that I am God. It says breathe in God. That is the closest translation, that is breathe in God. So in stillness, we are breathing. We are making sure that we are taking in what we need to. So we listen and we learn discernment. So a lot of people say, I just got a natural inclination. But guess what? You can hone in on your skills. Yeah, y'all quiet. You can hone in on your skills, sharpen your discernment, be able to see. Be able to see. This is part of discipline, not whipping your kids or whatnot. But I don't know how many parents are actually encouraging their children to have discernment, be able to discern what they're connecting to. We are going back into society again, you guys. Things are normalizing, masks about gone, people not paying attention. So make wise choices. Be able to discern what is happening. So that's verse 1 and 2. Verse 3 and 4. Once I was a son to my father, the tender darling of my mother. Now, some of y'all, my men were watching tonight. You a tender darling to your mama. He instructed me and said to me, let your mind hold on to my words. Keep my commandments and you will live. This is Proverbs. This is wisdom. In this, the author of Proverbs is asking that we hold on to words that we learn. What are we teaching our children? What are we teaching our communities? What are we teaching in places that we get to sit in? What are we giving them? How many people are being fathered or mothered by you? What are they gleaning from you? What are they taking from you? We know a lot of professionals watch Live Moments on the Men, and we appreciate you. But what happens when we start to teach or when we start to put out? Me and Zay, literally, we pick the scripture, we go, but we are very careful to cover and pray over this platform that we're not giving you misinformation. And if we do, we come back and correct it next week. But that is where we're inviting you to read for yourself. We invite you to listen and learn discernment. Listen for it, learn how to do it. And then here's this invite from this wisdom text that is saying, let your mind hold on to words. So what are we putting out as we parent information? What are we showing? How is it showing up? And how are we moving into it? So verse 5, acquire wisdom, acquire discernment. So again, I told you I'm reading from a Hebrew direct translation. Acquire wisdom, acquire discernment. If Zay was here, he would literally go, he would say, pick up a book, go watch the news, pick up a newspaper, ask questions, acquire wisdom, acquire discernment. This is something that we have to gather, you guys. Like, we got to go get it. We got to go get it. Some things are very uncomfortable. Like, I'm going to throw one out there. Literally, acquire wisdom and acquire discernment about the classroom that your child is sitting in. See what's going on. I've literally witnessed as a therapist children that had to suffer through classes because the teachers just thought the child was bad. Especially the child had some issues going on cognitively and they needed to be tested. Fought with the school to get them tested. Guess what? That was the issue. And so here the parents saying, my child wouldn't act like that. And so they acquired wisdom, they acquired discernment. Some of us are sitting in churches. I'm going to say it tonight. If Zay was here, he would throw it out. Some of us are sitting in churches. Y'all heard him and Naomi last week that we just taking stuff on. Acquire wisdom, acquire discernment. Is your season up there? I'm not saying that the church is bad. I'm not saying that you are bad. Is your season up there? Should you be moving? Should you go? Acquire wisdom, acquire discernment. Do not forget and do not swerve from my words. Do not forsake her, and she will guard you. Her is wisdom. So it's very hard to forsake wisdom once you've acquired it. And it's very hard not to see once you have acquired discernment. You see it. So my brother's on here tonight, if he's still here, and we work together at a particular facility. And once we gained wisdom about particular things, he had to go hop into the company van, and he had to go cancel out what he found out. Now he had to use discernment about it when he did it. And he could say amen if he wants to. He had to use discernment. Like, do I go out here after I have acquired the wisdom about what's going on, so for the betterment of the entire community that we serve? That is something that is huge. And then that wisdom and that discernment will stick with you. It does not leave, it does not go anywhere, and it will be mindful to go back and look at it if those situations happen again. So I don't know how, put in the chat if you're watching, you can chat. What does that look like to acquire wisdom, to acquire discernment? Because this protects you. Like, this is big. Zay and I normally around this time, we really harp on particular issues because of the time and the climate. And so we harp on school, and our children being able to acquire wisdom and acquire discernment. How many of us actually listen? My sister Ebony Sherman gave a beautiful sermon. We were supposed to be lecturing at this thing. She got up and preached it. But how many of us are listening to our children, and we're giving them the tool of wisdom to know that we are gaining wisdom from them about what's going on, because they're in the environment, and then we're going to come back with discernment with our children so they'll feel comfortable enough to come to us and say, hey, this is what's going on for me, because wisdom is supposed to protect you. But sometimes, based upon what we know, so let's just sit here for a minute, based upon what we know and how we were raised and the intergenerational trauma that goes along with opening our mouths, we shut down that which could be used to protect us. Our children being able to speak up, those in our families being able to speak to what they need to speak to, those in our communities being able to speak to what they need to, because here, the acquiring wisdom and acquiring discernment allows us to speak it, and it gives us protection. Verse 7, the beginning of wisdom is to acquire it. That's the beginning of wisdom. Some people are like, I got this gift of wisdom. That's in the Bible too. But really, the beginning of wisdom is acquire it. With all your acquisitions, that's all you're getting. With all your acquisitions, acquire discernment. This is why I like reading from a version that is supposed to be direct translation. That's totally different words, right? Let's sit on it. The beginning of wisdom is acquiring wisdom. That's the beginning of wisdom. Sometimes I love Hebrew Bible. I love the Old Testament. This is my favorite place to sit. Anytime that I teach, preach, I'm more than likely going to come out of Old Testament because I just like it. I was a kid reading straight through it. I mean, it's just my thing, right? So, but this is why I like it, because, it's almost jazzy. The writer's almost jazzy right here when the writer says the beginning of wisdom is to acquire it. Get you some wisdom. And then, with all your acquisition, acquire discernment. This text is moving us through in a very fluid way. Like, don't sit on your information. Don't sit on your wisdom and then don't have the discernment on how to disseminate. Some of us are doing it. I got a whole politician on here. What's up, Pastor Robinson? Listen, when you get information, because some of us, we don't get it. So another space of the acquisition of wisdom. Acquisition of wisdom. Don't listen to hearsay. Like, sometimes on my page, I will share something because I want to spark a conversation. That's what I want to do, because I want people to see the wisdom in the room, really. And so what happened today was something put out. And I want to thank Danielle Thomas. I mean, she's an amazing, in my opinion, amazing theologian, public theologian. And she gets our minds going in Unfit Christian. And so she came back and she talked about, and she referenced Dr. Juanita Bynum. So in the reference to Dr. Bynum, she wasn't being nasty or anything, but she was pointing out wisdom, what she gleaned from what was said. And then she gave discernment about it, and she held space for Dr. Bynum in her work. So, of course, she got attacked for that. And she came back and she said, holding space don't mean I agree. And so I came and I wrote that because that really hit me. So while we're gaining Wisdom. Hold on, we got Zay. He finna pop in. So why you are in the acquisition of wisdom and you're acquiring discernment, then learn how to use the wisdom, discern how to put it there, and then you don't have to be in agreement to hold space with people. You just have to be in discernment on what space you need to be in. So Zay, I was talking about the text, and I was coming from um the direct Hebrew Bible translation after reading it out of King James, Proverbs 4 and 7. You know it because you from Atlanta and all that getting.
I am so sorry. I thought we were
It's
going on.
okay.
I thought we were going on at 9.
No, it's at 8:30. It's okay. You fine. That they might get some more time because people popping in. Um, but I was saying when we started, um, I was asking them to pray for school systems and pray for the areas of school systems, the students, the teachers, administration, and employees, because these are the 4 areas of school. And then I asked people to pay for those who are sitting in addictive spaces, because we are going back into full throttle how westernized society lives, and we still have pandemic going on. We still have
We
people
have
don't
a
know how to
second.
socialize.
We have a
Yeah,
second pandemic that's starting to happen, and
yeah,
that is the monkeypox that people are not talking about.
yeah.
And when they do talk about it, they're passing misinformation, saying it's a STD, STI, and that it only affects LGBTQIA people.
I was
When
waiting on
they
you to come on before I dug into it, and that's why I picked this text. That is
when in,
why this was here.
when in all
But I didn't want
actuality,
to ask till you came.
it is everybody who is catching this disease. Children are catching it. Um, Elderly are catching it, women are catching it. So it is not an LGBTQIA disease. It is a disease that is happening, and it doesn't pass sexually. That's the part. It is like chickenpox. It is a super spreader, but it's an advanced form of chickenpox or measles that you can get it from spit. You can get it from, I'm sorry, saliva. You can get it from um, breathing on
Oh,
someone. You can get it from someone actually literally wearing a cloth or clothes and they have it and you put it on, you can become infected.
mm.
Um, Toilet seats, door handles. And so we have to understand that right now we're living in 2 pandemics and yet we're returning back to normal because money is more important than health. The Bible talks
This is
about
this
the
is what
Bible talks
this is why Live Moments on the Men is the business.
the Bible talks about that the love of money is the root. My granddaddy would say the root of all evil. And so what we're seeing now is that America has this love for money, but a dislike and a distrust for its people.
So Zay, going into that, this is what the translation from um the Jewish Study Bible says, which is supposed to be the most direct translation, translated directly. And so it says the beginning of wisdom is to acquire it. So like what you did, that rundown, get some information before you start making judgment. Acquire the wisdom. With all your acquisition, acquire discernment, and then discern on how to move. So like here we are with, and again, I told you around August and September, Zay and I harp on education, and then we harp on festivities because we love everybody on this platform. So 2 things that are happening in the next 3 weeks, I know in the city of Atlanta and across the nation, kids are returning back to school, and then you have Black Pride events that are happening. Get you some understanding behind this, like get some wisdom, because what's happening, if we don't have it, then we spread mistruths, thinking that we're helping people, thinking that we're taking care of people, thinking that we're doing right. So like in our school systems, we're spreading that things are okay, when just today in Clayton County, I don't know if you saw it, it was a brutal beatdown, is how it said in the news, of a high school student. But again, this is going by the principal thing. I don't know the information about the student, but I do know that when school starts around particular times, there are students that are bullied. And over the last 4 years, we watch at the beginning of the school year. This is acquiring wisdom, y'all. That there's always some child that's bullied to the point of death. They don't want to be on the earth anymore. Wisdom is so great. It says in the text that wisdom is supposed to protect us. So what happens when we don't speak or teach our children about what's going on, or teach community? Or how do we move into that? Like, that is a big deal, because that needs to happen. Because that lack of wisdom, I feel like when our people lack wisdom, they lack protection. I say that because we perish because of a lack of knowledge. But in order to even build the framework, wisdom is our base, understanding is the frame of that base. And then we have knowledge that is moving into its trinkets. So I can know a whole lot of stuff and be pointless. Just
Wisdom is not
waste.
just knowledge.
Right,
Wisdom is application of said knowledge.
right.
So that's why in all thy getting, get understanding. She made a joke when I got on, because she know that's one of my favorite people, and he is from Atlanta in the College Park area, and he made that famous, at least in our world. We understood it. It was Bible, but he made it famous as a quote. Um, and I'm not going to say who he is, but I will always honor who he is. But I say that to say that in all that getting get understanding, we have to get it. But then the second part of that is the wisdom. How do we apply that knowledge that we're getting, that understanding that we're getting? So when you put it together, wisdom is knowledge, understanding, and application of those things. So that, and hakma, wisdom, is a way of us coming together and bringing all parts of ourselves together. Um, I would go down the road of the fact that Hakma is a woman, which is an attribute of God.
You can, because that's the other. I picked this text because after last week, one, y'all destroyed it. You and Naomi, y'all took me out. I really had to sit on everything that was said. Then this hit me that we don't have, this is stated, it became a quote in this particular person's ministry. But for real, the beginning of wisdom is to acquire it. And then what do I do with that? I then acquire discernment so that I can give it out properly. So what does it look like when we don't know? Sitting in a room full of spaces that won't, like this week, there was a whole argument about if God is he. Well, we just found out, and Zay didn't lie. You can go look it up. Look up Hakma. Proverbs, wisdom is Hakma, which is a feminine attribute of God in your Old Testament. So what's so important in this access to wisdom that we didn't have to put gender on God? Because that takes away from wisdom now being a protection, in my opinion, because it now becomes frivolous.
There's another name I'm looking for. That really El Shaddai. Everybody goes in when they start screaming about El Shaddai.
Ooh, the breasted one, the many breasted one.
But literally it says the many breasted one, which means, or is a, not shouldn't say means, but is a reference again to a feminine quality of God. Why are we saying this? I'm not pushing a particular agenda. What I'm saying is we castigate certain groups and certain people for certain attributes that they possess and display, when God says that man, humanity, Adam, was made in God's image. So there are attributes of God in every person that we see, and that God has taken God's time. We just have to love them. And if what they're presenting should be wrong, then our commandment as New Testament believers is to love them no matter what, and let God do what God's going to do. I hope that makes sense.
Yes.
And so I think we get so caught up on defending the Bible and defending God and defending our faith, when we were never called to defend it. We were just called to display it.
The beginning of wisdom is to acquire it. And then after the acquisition, acquire discernment. And so, as they just said that, I'm going to read through verse 9. We should hug wisdom, is what the text says. Hug her to you, keep it close, and she will exalt you. When you learn, when you listen and learn discernment, when you access wisdom, keep it close to you so that you don't have to argue and you don't have to be a defender of your faith. Guess what? It's you're hugging it and it's holding. Guess what? It's going to move you up. Wisdom is going to keep excelling you because you are very aware and have a relationship with wisdom and discernment. So therefore, when you put knowledge out, it doesn't have to be an argument at all. Your very presence brings in whatever you want to call as a defense.
See, people like to use Elijah on the mountaintop with the prophets of Baal as having to fight and defend God and their beliefs. But what they don't realize is that that was not as much about defending God as that was about defending one's people and defending one's culture and defending oneself. Because if he would have lost, he would have been killed and his people would have been enslaved and continued to be beaten by the daughter of Baal, Jezebel, which means the unexalted one. So he was not defending God as much as God empowered him to defend and protect his people. So we're called to show our faith. We're called to protect those who cannot protect themselves. And we're called to operate in the power of God so that people can be healed and delivered. We're not called to protect God, because if God needs protection, God is not God.
So let's be clear. I want to skip over there. Let's do it. So this is second 1 Kings 19.
So and people are asking, say, why did you go here? Well, I'll tell you why I went here. I went here because as we're talking about getting wisdom, we have created a religion of faith on defending something that does not need to be defended, when the tradition was to show love. So there is no reason why a Paula White should become the leader of the evangelical movement and tell us that Trump is a prophet of God. There's no reason for a Herschel Walker to say that he is operating in the spirit of Republicans and Christianity, so he supports Donald Trump, when Donald Trump has historically called Black people the N-word, has historically abused Black women and Black executives and caused them to lose their money while he protected his own money. There's no reason for that if we understood that the call is not to protect God, but to protect others.
So y'all want to invite now the thunder is here. Y'all give us 30 more minutes and we're gonna make you happy. We have to text 1 Kings 18 because people want to read this, and they what I found that say in defending and trying to say that this is this is a text that we use to talk about defending the faith. It wasn't a defense at all. It wasn't. Elijah again sitting in what he knew. He had acquired some wisdom. He had acquired some discernment. He didn't have to fight with these people. He didn't fight with them at all, actually. He didn't fight. I want y'all to go see it for yourselves. He didn't fight with the people. That wasn't even the thing for him to do. He didn't have time for that. So he gave instructions for them. It was no fight. Now what we see is that the prophets of Baal, they tear it all day long, begging for fire and water to come. Like they tear it. So they tarried. Nothing happened. When noon came, Elijah mocked them, saying, "Shout louder." Like he kept. He was like, "Do you?" There was no fight here. If anything, he was being, I was almost messed up. Like he was, he was being smart. But then, in the confidence of what he was doing, which adds to the wisdom that he had acquired, he knew God. And it says, "Hold wisdom tight." He knew God. Then in discernment, he knew the right time to send up to heaven and say, "Hey, let's make it happen. Let's go ahead and burn it and put water on it at the same time." Now, what we miss in the text is the overwhelming space that Elijah had. He was so overwhelmed that he went and hid up under a tree, which led him to a cave. Some of us have this information, but we're so overwhelmed when we share the wisdom that we miss out on discerning where to share it. We get overwhelmed and we pull back because
And so,
I don't know if I should have shared it then. I don't know if I should have did it then.
so you bring up the cave. What we don't talk about in the cave is that he hears a voice, and he wrestles in the cave, much like Israel wrestles at Pinal. And as he wrestles spiritually in the cave, not physical wrestle, but there's a spiritual wrestle. There's an implication in the text that he finds God in himself in that place, because God says, now you go back. And when he goes back, this is when he has now to deal with the prophets of Baal. He has been empowered. So although we run, sometimes in the running, we must take the time to hear and listen for the voice of God. Yes, he ran. Yes, he was scared. But even in the darkness of the cave, where there was nobody else, and he thought he was getting away from his assignment, he heard God to say, no, you've got to go back.
Okay. So, Zay was late. What do we read? Zay was late tonight, and I'm glad he was late, because y'all can see how this thing works out. Y'all finna see how this thing works out. So it won't be like, oh, because.
And I apologize for being late. I really
No, you're fine. When I say you so fine for being late tonight, I'm gonna tell you why. Because it literally states in this text that when we go out in the acquisition of wisdom, we should acquire discernment. And even in that, we should listen and we should learn discernment. He had to go get it. Yes, clarity. He had to go do that. We should listen and we should learn discernment. I look at that cave now from a mental health standpoint. First of all, everybody would have said he was psychotic, in today's standards. But I really think his pullback, his pull away, was so that he could discern what happened, because he caused something to. Again, you joking and laughing with people because your God is real. Can we just talk freely tonight? Your God is real. You just seen God do miracle after miracle after miracle, and you got these other people up here like your God ain't even. It's a statue. I mean, it's whatever it may be. But in that, some of us get shocked by God's response. Like, it overwhelms us. And I think, like Zay said, it was a regrouping of himself. It was a remembering of himself so that he could go back out. In that, I really believe he took the acquisition of wisdom and he was able to put some discernment on it. So now how do I go back out? Do I go back out making fun, or do I go back out understanding that wisdom is now my guard? It protects me. Jezebel couldn't have did anything to him if he wanted to. If she wanted to. She couldn't have. She didn't have the authority unless he had given it to her. Y'all go read. She didn't have it. But he had to go acquire the discernment on how to go and approach her.
So this, and it's weird that you brought this text up. And when I say weird, I don't mean weird like bad. I say weird like interesting. Because I don't know if Margaret even remembers this, and many of the people who would watch this don't know this. But in seminary, this was the first text I preached. In seminary. And literally, as I was studying and preparing, I looked, and I mentioned it earlier tonight as we were just talking. I studied the name of Jezebel. Margaret says that she knows when I preach or speak, I'm going to break down at least one or two words, because she says she calls me a dictionary. My grandmama used to call me Webster's when I was a little boy, because Webster's dictionary. So she would be like, Webster's, and she would ask me what words meant, and I would tell her, and she just got a big kick out of it. And so when I looked up the word Jezebel, it literally translates into the unexalted one. And so that there is a play on the words, because she is literally the unexalted one, while she is the queen who the king has given her his authority and power to. So she's unexalted, and her parents named her unexalted, which implies that she wasn't the firstborn daughter, which implies that she wasn't the best looking daughter, which implies that she had no real skill set other than she knew how to get what she needed to do what she wanted. And so although she was unexalted, she was given power. And so there's a preaching, a teaching, a lesson in the fact that some people are in position without power and without wisdom, but they have the position because they knew how to get the position. But they're not really the ones who's supposed to have it. So when we put that in and we juxtapose that with our prophet running and leaving, what we're seeing is that sometimes we're running from something that has no real power to beat us, and we've already gotten a victory from it because it's unexalted, and we are exalted because we're made in the image of God, and we're operating under the power of God, and we're operating with the wisdom of God, because wisdom will cause you to get all that you want and all that you need. And so it says that wisdom will lead you into a wealthy place. If you go read the text for real, wisdom will lead you into a wealthy place. So if we are wise, we are moving, we are able to defend and move away from the tricks of an unexalted enemy who just wants what we already have the right to. So Jezebel becomes a placeholder for a Satan later on that is the person who attacks the believer. I hope I'm making sense, and I hope
you make sense because you hit verse 8. If y'all don't think we on it, read Proverbs 4 and 8. Wisdom, if you hold on to it, will exalt you.
Yeah,
it will take care of you. It will protect you. Mm-hmm. If you hold on to it, though, if you learn how to discern with it,
right,
it will cover you. And so I love that we're using Jezebel and Elijah, because in that text too, I'm going to jump and then come back. We also find that in Elijah's overwhelmness, he gets some instructions on who to go and anoint for next movement. Wisdom will tell you when to move and when it's time for you to move.
But you have to listen to it. So there are some pastors who are upset because their ministries are failing because they were so worried about their own legacy. If they would have just done what God said and moved, their legacy would be intact and their ministry would still be growing. The Bible says that God uses help me. God uses the crazy stuff, the to confound
the wise, the foolishness.
The foolishness. God used foolishness to confound the wise. And what do I mean by why did I bring it up? Because it seems crazy that you should step down in order to promote and to maintain and to elevate. I'm thinking of a particular pastor now. If he would have stepped down 10 years ago, 5 years ago, his name would still be great. And his ministry, which was started from nothing, would still be going. I'm not gonna give much more than that because I don't know nobody saying who I'm talking about. I don't want no smoke. This is one time when they don't want no smoke. But I'm just saying, and this pastor that I'm thinking of is not the only one. Mm-hmm. And I'm using pastors because we're talking from the context of Christianity, and we're talking from the context of the Westernized Christian church. And so that's why I'm using pastors. But it applies to every person in leadership. The business
I'm thinking about teachers. I'm thinking about teachers that hold on. Wisdom will tell you when to move and who can come in succession. Now, some of y'all work in public schools, some work in private. But there is that one mentee that you have who you done threw your cloak on. Mm. But you still trying to, you done threw the cloak on them. Wisdom will tell you how to move. And discernment will tell you when to do it, how and when. These are protections for us that walk in wisdom. This protects you and it keeps you in elevation. It keeps you moving forward.
So let me help the pastor. Even Jesus knew when to leave and when to
Mm.
promote somebody else. Okay, you don't believe me? Go to the New Testament, go to the text. It says that I don't, Jesus says, they don't kill me, but I freely lay down my life. I know when it's time to go. Two, I don't want to leave, but it's not my will. It's time for me to go because I have done all I need to do. It is finished. When you read it in the Greek, it lets you know that all that needed to be done has been accomplished. Number four, Peter, upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail. Historically, it is believed that Peter becomes the first pope or the first leader, the first pastor to pastors of what becomes the Christian church. And then not only that, but he also leaves somebody who would take care of his mother. He has biological brother. He has a biological brother. His brother's name is James. But he leaves it. He leaves his mother in the care of somebody else because he knows that person has walked closely with him and will have the same spirit and love towards what he loved, will have that same towards that thing. So that is a line of succession. Jesus shows us that it is okay to give up, to go up. And it is only after Jesus does all of this that Jesus comes back after he has been resurrected and says, now I have all power, all authority in my hand because I gave up. So now I have it, and because I have it, I can give it away.
Mm.
So there is a wisdom in knowing when to stay and when to leave. And there's somebody who's watching this who may be dealing with a relationship, a job, and they're trying to figure out whether they should go. That was your answer. You got to know when to go and when to stay. And when your spirit says move, most likely it's time to go. Me and Margaret talked about this week, talked about with a few other people. I know that there is a movement happening in my life because what used to bring me joy is not bringing me joy anymore. And so there's a shift happening because I feel it in my spirit. I hope that makes sense. I hope we see
It made complete sense. So, Proverbs 4, because we're right here, but Proverbs 4 has all the nuggets. Like, this is a text that people go to. And I mean, take your time to read Proverbs 4 when you have time. But I want to talk about how wisdom, again, is a guard. Because I'm gonna be mental health. That's what I do. Verse 20. My son, listen to my speech, incline your ear to my word. So you have this father-son, this parent-child conversation. Do not lose sight of them. Now, we read this at the top, what it said, if you hold the words, keep the wisdom, get the discernment. They are life to him who finds them, healing for his whole body. So not only does wisdom protect us from others, but it also starts to take care of our inward, which will shine on the outside. How do I know that? Because it's a verse that we love to quote. Because you should guard your heart, because out of it flows the issues of life. I read it from this text. More than all that you guard your mind. So some of us ask questions about mind and heart, right? Guard your mind, for it is the source of life. Wisdom is the principal thing. The principal thing will protect you externally, and it will take care of you and rejuvenate you internally. Here's the cave experience again. That's why I said I think he went to go remember himself.
the mind is the most powerful and important part of the body, because the mind, and I say that on purpose, the body, because the mind is connected to the brain.
I wish I had my
And
brain with me so I could show y'all what he's saying.
so as you conceive it in your brain, your mind gives it life, and then your mind gives it bones. Let me put it that way. I'm gonna do it that way. Your mind gives it bones, it gives it substance, but your mouth gives it life. So howsoever a man thinketh, so is he.
So I got a question about evil, because this text says, keep your feet from evil.
That means don't let your mind go to places that will cause you to walk in a place that is not where God wants you to be. So keep your feet from, because everywhere that your feet shall trod, you shall have victory and it shall be yours. So you don't need to be claiming stuff that is not meant for you. That is evil.
Say it one more time, Zay. I need people to hear it. Say it one more time.
So it's telling you to guard your mind, because as you think, your feet will follow. So you don't need to walk in the places that's not meant for you, because the Bible says everywhere you try or step, you will take, you will own, you will get victory. And so if you're walking in places you're not supposed to, you're claiming things that you're not supposed to have, because your feet gives you authority to take it and claim it, because you stood there, because you're standing there in the image of God. But also there is this. Let's look at Achan. I should say, but let's look at also Achan. Is what I was trying to say. Achan touched that accursed thing, which was meant for something else. A curse doesn't mean witchcraft in that text. It doesn't mean that it was something that was cursed by somebody and it caused a curse on Achan. No. The text says when Achan touched it, God had already claimed it for something else. God had a purpose for it for something else. And Achan took it because Achan desired it, because Achan's mind said it was valuable and he could use it and he could need it. But not only did he do that, but then he tried to hide it from God. And he buried it in his tent, so that nobody else could find it, and that God says, I see what you touched and what you're holding dear. So when I first came on, I talked about the love of money. The love of money, Achan saw something valuable and loved it. That caused his feet to walk in evil. So when you love God, when you love money more than God and God's people, you'll walk in evil. So you'll kill leaders of other countries, because they're messing up your flow of oil and money coming into your country. You'll kill Black folk because you're scared of them and you see the promise in them more so than what they see in themselves. What I really realized, and I'm going to shut up, is that many times the enemy sees you as a greater risk and as a greater threat than you see the enemy. And the reason the enemy is attacking you is because the enemy doesn't want you to realize the power that and what you have already in you. So they attack you. That's why they talk about attack. The enemy comes for your mind, because if the enemy gets your mind, the enemy is going to get your wallet. The enemy is going to get your family. The enemy is going to get your health. If you don't believe me, look at medical studies. Medical studies are funny because they'll give people sugar pills, placebos, and those people will get healthy thinking that they're taking something. That's how they're able to know if the drugs actually work, because the drug should have a much higher rate of healing than the people on the placebos. But if it doesn't, then that means the drug is missing something. But it shows us how powerful the mind is that some people can think themselves into deliverance and healing.
Yes.
Because
your
of the
brain heals every day. New neural pathways, brand new ones are created every single day.
I just hope I'm making sense.
You making complete sense. What we start to speak, what we start to say, will start to direct our path. The goal here, the reason, because wisdom is the principle. If I can keep my mind guarded, because out of it flows issues of life. It's my life source, right? This is, Zay already said it. I wish I could show you, because some of us in our subcortical space, we holding a whole bunch of stuff. that center. So I'm gonna say that's your mind. It's just holding it. But we love to live in the frontal lobe of the brain. That's gonna make some logic sense out of it. But what happens with that logic when it's off, when it is not full of wisdom and discernment? It's garbage. The logic becomes garbage. So what happens with that? We then pack down more trauma, more pain, more misunderstanding, and so everything stays crooked and bound. But the goal of wisdom and discernment is that it causes us to stop devious talk. Don't speak ill over yourself. Don't be nasty to yourself. Speak life into yourself. Keep your eyes forward. If Aiken hadn't thought that was a good thing to keep, when literally the text says, the guy said, make sure everything destroyed. He said, oh, this is pretty. I'm gonna keep that. He knew he was wrong when he said, I'm gonna keep it and I'm gonna hide it. I'm buried in my tent. He brought danger to everybody. It wasn't just him. He brought danger to everybody. So keeping your eyes forward in wisdom and discernment, keep your gaze straight. There's nothing that's prettier than following what God has called you to do. Anything else is going to be devious and deceitful. It's going to be cricket. And then you get to survey the course you take. This is where discernment comes in. Listen and learn discernment. You need to survey where you are. Do I belong here? Zay already said there's a shift in the atmosphere for somebody on here tonight. It's several somebodies. Do I still belong here? Is this where my feet need to stop? Because where my feet go, I own that. Or do I need to move? Because wisdom will show you how to move. Discernment will tell you when to do it. And then you will have the knowledge and the access with it, because you're going to have your mind taken care of and that guarded, because wisdom will guard you.
The preacher in me would stop right there with Aiken and having it buried, because we just having the conversation now. The preacher in me would stop with Aiken having it buried in his tent, whatever that thing was. And I would preach the text from the question, what's hidden in your tent? Why you bring it up, Zay? Oh, well, I bring it up because as Margaret just spoke and brought a lot of clarity, many of us have to go back and look at what we have buried, trying to hide and hold on to. Because we have created a situation, because we've got some stuff hidden in our tents that really don't belong to us. And it creates a weight in the mind, in the spirit, in the body, because you have something buried. So when Margaret talks about the mind, there are things that we bury and that we hide in our mind, in our subconscious, our tent, that we have not dealt with. And it's causing us to walk in a space that God has not intended for us to walk, because we got it hid in our tents of our subconscious mind. So we got to deal with it. We got to be able to go before God, before ourselves, and say, this is the stuff I'm holding on to.
Because we're supposed to only hold on to wisdom. Y'all hear what the text says? Hold on to wisdom. And so, acquire wisdom, acquire discernment. But we start to hold on to the negative things. We start to hold on to things spoken over us. Here comes this crookedness, this devious stuff that leads us into evil spaces. Does not mean, and we using evil in the way that is, when it's not meant for you, then it's not going to give you life. It's not going to cause you to be alive. And so flip live around and you're going to be in evil spaces. Evil literally means it usurps life.
And so it's funny that you keep using the word crooked and you're making this reference to bending, because that text, we are born and shapen in iniquity and all that stuff. When you go back and look at that in its original language, those words bent and formed and shapen literally means to be woven together like wicker, to be like a wicker chair. It literally means to be bent, to be formed, to be bent to life causes us to bend in ways we're not supposed to be, and to be weaved into things we're not supposed to be. So when we get wisdom, it straightens us out. The Bible talks about straight paths. And so if you're like wicker and you're bound and you're twisted, you can't be straight. But when you get wisdom, when you understand who God is to you and who you are to God, it moves you out of this bent state, and now you're becoming straight. Martin Luther King had a very famous quote. He said, "If we stand up, they can't continue to be on our backs." And I misquoted it a little bit because I put it in my own words. But go look it up. Go look up the quote that Martin Luther King had about the bent backs. And basically, he was saying, if we stand up, they can't continue to ride our backs. When you realize that you are just as powerful and just as necessary as the others, you stand up straight. When you are the other in the regard of being marginalized and you stand up, they can't marginalize you. Because you start to build and work in the space that you're called to. So even in the margins, you're prospering because you now have stood up and you're walking in the wisdom that you're called to.
You have discernment. And then the other thing in the text, because I went to the end, so I'm coming back to the middle. This requires discipline.
Yeah.
So what I will say is Elijah had discipline. Even when he got overwhelmed, he went and took breath. He found stillness. And in that discipline place, he was able to hear and realize that he wasn't alone. So his mind wouldn't be overtaken by thoughts that didn't make any sense. He brought himself back into wisdom, back into discernment, disciplined enough to walk out, manage what he needed to manage, and understand that it was time for him to move and train the next generation. I want Zay to find that quote, because somebody like your back, something is riding you, but just stand up. It eventually will fall off of you because you are straightforward, disciplined to where you need to go. And Zay over here looking for this quote. I know this is good for y'all because I want him to quote this thing. But that.
So here we go. So, one of them. A man can't ride your back unless it's bent. Another one, because whenever men and women straighten their backs up, they're going somewhere, because a man can't ride your back unless it's bent. That's what I was looking for. That's the whole quote. Whenever men and women straighten their backs up, stand up, they are going somewhere, because a man can't ride your back unless it's bent. So when you stand up, what's on your back has to fall off.
Oh. But wisdom is the principal thing, y'all.
And so I do want to say this. When you talked about discipline, which is one of those places where I lack, I'm very honest about that. My sister, my daddy are some of the most disciplined people I know. My sister is so, which is weird, and I'm not gonna go into that because she'll get me. I don't gonna share too much. But my sister is disciplined. Like, she can take a little and make a lot with it because she's disciplined. She has gotten and grasped the concept of denying this moment right here so that she can have in the long term. My sister is amazing at doing that. My daddy is amazing at doing that. My daddy can be 300 pounds in January and say, well, I got to lose 100 pounds by the end of the year. And by May and June, he's lost 90. And it don't look like he's doing, but he'll get up and walk 5 miles. He'll go to work. He'll do what he's doing. He'll come back and walk another 5 miles. He'll stop eating. And you'll see it looks like he's eating the same stuff. But then when you start to analyze it, he's cut out this. He's cut out that. He's disciplined. I don't have that. But that discipline is very, very powerful, because even when we're talking about Elijah being disciplined, we have to mention that Elisha was also disciplined. That was a level of discipline to be able to understand that once I take my cloak off and I put it on him, I got to go.
Mm-hmm.
Because many people will take the cloak off and anoint something else and give them, but then try to stay there.
Yeah.
But it takes discipline to know when to move and to operate in the fact that you may not be in the front anymore. But that doesn't mean that you're not as important, because whoever is wearing your cloak is forever connected to who you are. But if you're undisciplined, you get upset because they wearing your cloak that you gave them. But there's also an implication in that many of us are trying to wear clothes that nobody gave us.
I can't throw nothing through this computer screen.
That's what we talk about, keeping your feet from the evil. Because many of us are trying to put on cloaks that belong to somebody else. If you read the text, when Elisha puts the cloak on Elijah, Elijah comes back to the people. Elijah's always going away and coming back. There's some there. I don't have time to dissect it, but there's some there. But when he comes,
because when he gave him the cloak, but he still had his own mind, his own wisdom.
But when he comes back with that cloak on, the people say he looks like Elisha, but it can't be Elisha because he's gone.
Yeah.
What am I meaning by that? What's the moment in that? For Elisha, that meant that his legacy would live on, because Elijah, as long as he wore the cloak, would look like him. I hope y'all can grasp that. Will look like him. Many of you are worried about being here, when in essence the legacy is that you got people who look like you carrying you on.
Wisdom doesn't die.
Because wisdom and energy don't die. So what you put in them. So Margaret's grandmama passed away. But if you ever spend any time with Margaret Liddell Conley, you have met her grandmama. I never met her grandmama. But when Margaret gets upset, when Margaret in one of her moods, when Margaret is extremely happy, when Margaret just chilling, that lady comes out. Let Margaret bake you a pie or cook you something when she in one of them moods. You'll think an old 80-year-old woman in that kitchen cooking. Let Margaret get mad and she start telling you stuff. All them old sayings come out. Look at Margaret's face and you look at a picture of her grandmama. It's like you looking at her grandmama 30 years younger, because it doesn't die. Because what you deposit in somebody is going to cause them to look like you. And that look like means they're going to operate in the wisdom and the spirit in which you've sown into them. I hope that made sense.
Oh, it made sense. I hope the whole thing made sense tonight. So wisdom is principle. They stayed in the preacher part, but I wanted to give y'all other spaces where wisdom is principle. And some of y'all need to own that wisdom is principle. And that just means that I'm going to access wisdom, and accessing wisdom and accessing and acquiring wisdom. I want to acquire discernment. In the process of discerning, I'm going to recognize that this is what's disciplining me.
Yeah.
Because I have to keep my mind, because there's where my life source is. And if I don't keep my life source, I will deviate from the path of wisdom. which is where I prosper. And some of us are holding things that are not wise
For
and
us
not
to hold.
discerned. And it's
Yeah.
not wise for us to hold. Like, hold on to wisdom. Hug her, is what the text says, and she will protect you. Hug her, and she will protect you. She will tell you when to move and how to move and where you need to plant your feet.
When you hug somebody, your bodies become connected to the space to where while you're in that embrace, you are one with that.
Mm.
A hug is intimate because you become one in that space as you're hugging because your body's pressed together. And so you're sharing, you're breathing at that same air at the same time as you embrace and as you hug. It is a spiritual moment if we would understand it. So when we say hold or hug wisdom, become one with wisdom. Breathe the same air as wisdom. Let wisdom direct you. Become wisdom.
All right, y'all. There's nothing more to say. Mm. So I hope this has been good because it's taking me out. I hope y'all can feel God. There are spaces where we need to be wise because we need to be wisdom. We need to acquire discernment, be disciplined, and keep your mind so that you can prosper. I invite you to snack on, eat up Proverbs 4 in those chunks of how we broke it down. And you saw what happened when wisdom can overthrow anything evil. There are particular spaces I asked you to pray for at the beginning. They came right in and asked you to pray for the same thing. Pray for our governmental processes, that wisdom now becomes a hugged space. Pray for our school systems and systems in general, that they begin to hug wisdom. Pray for our medical systems, that they begin to hug wisdom. And pray for people, that they begin to hug wisdom.
Next week, we probably going to talk about wisdom again because I feel it in my shundo.
It'll be a part two. Yeah, it'll be a part two next week because there is more. Because I really want to take wisdom's day, because the way he cast that cloak, Elisha got to keep his individual thought process. For my people who struggling in ministry, thinking that you got to follow after your leader, go read that text in 1 Kings 19. He threw the cloak on him, and Elisha came back and said, "Hey, can I go kiss my mom and daddy goodbye?" So y'all know in Black community, if you kissing somebody good, that's like a 4-hour situation in today's time. And Elijah said, "Yeah, but I'm gonna keep on moving." And he didn't move so fast. He didn't move so fast that Elisha couldn't keep up with him and catch up, because he knew who would be serving him for succession. He didn't make it harder.
For his successor to walk with him. So there's an implication in the text that when you understand your assignment, that is also wisdom. There's an implication in the text that says that also when wisdom, when you have a successor, is that you don't force them. You allow them. Now, let me put it this way: you allow them the space to be who they need to be and to handle the things they need to do while you're still moving forward, so that when they are ready, they can catch up with you. because he said, yeah, you can go kiss your mama. You can go kiss your daddy. I'm going to keep moving because that's the assignment. But because I know you have to go with me, I will still give you, I will move at a rate at which you can catch up with me after you've handled what you need to handle.
And it's my belief, Zay, that he realized that he had his own mind that he had to keep because he had his own life that he had to take care of.
So we can be mentors and mentees and not be the exact copy of it.
That hit somebody tonight. Yeah.
Because when I am your mentee, I am going to look like you when I put on your cloak, when it's my season to put on your cloak. But that doesn't mean I'm just like you. That means that I now have the wisdom and the knowledge that you've imparted in me, and I know how to flow and operate in ways I would not. And so because your example is how now I'm flowing and operating. So I will reflect you.
Yeah.
Even though I'm not you. Because you gave me space to go do what I need to do and catch up.
We come back. This is gonna be a part 2 because this hit somebody tonight. That last piece hit me because ministry will strip you of Proverbs 4 and tell you that you got to look and be like somebody else when that's not what the text says. The text doesn't offer me that. I got to hug wisdom for myself. I got to hug her. I got to take care of my own mind because that's where my life comes from. That's my life source. But it does not mean that I'm not a succession for someone. And and somebody's going to succeed me too. This is where we're making path. We coming back next week. We're going to sit in it. Read, if y'all follow us, read all of Proverbs 4. And I want y'all to go read 1 Kings 18 and 19. Because the other thing inside of that too, to go with this text, is that God, the overwhelmed space that Elijah had, God said, I need you to go anoint 3 people. And when you anoint Hazel, Jehu, and Elisha, what Hazel don't manage, Jehu will take care of it. And what Jehu can't take care of, Elisha will take care of. Some of y'all need to realize that you can't do this by yourself. And wisdom will show you how to move. Discernment will show you when to move. And knowledge will tell you what you need to do with the move. All right, we got to get out of here. Y'all waited tonight. We got to get out of here. What else you got, Zay?
Wisdom says be quiet because we'll be here all night. So wisdom says be quiet.
All right. We love y'all. Be blessed this week. Move in wisdom. Actually acquire it. And after the acquisition of wisdom, acquire discernment. Use it for discipline to take care of your mind. As you hug wisdom, it will protect you and take care of you. May wisdom exalt you this week when you use it. We love you. We out. We will catch y'all next week. Y'all got homework. We never leave y'all with homework for real, but go read it so y'all can keep up next week. All right. Be blessed. Bye, y'all.